My name's Michelle and I'm one of the resourcing managers at Thornton. So my role is to head up our student recruitment team. So we recruit probably in the region of 400 to 500 students every year, and we've got a team of about 7 that do that across the UK. So that's kind of my role. My background, I've been in recruitment for probably about 7 to 8 years, and kind of done a mixture of agency and in-house roles.
I'm Shelton. I'm currently a senior resourcing advisor in our kind of new experienced hire team at Thornton. I've been in recruitment for 10 years now. I've reached the double figures. Started my life in the agency world. I'm sure there's some similar people in the room, and if not, I'm going to get loads of booze in a minute. Moving to account management, RPO, and then eventually my first kind of official in-house role with Thornton in December 2015.
Brilliant. So the purpose of our presentation today is really to talk about the power and the importance of identity. So we've gone through quite a lot of change at Thornton as a firm generally, and we've had to have a real shift and focus on how we really attract, assess and select talent, and that's talent right across the firm, from student recruitment right up to kind of director and partner recruitment. And what we've found throughout our whole kind of work and our approach is just it's just really the power of kind of knowing what your firm stands for, what makes you unique, and what you're kind of trying to send out to kind of the world in terms of your brand. So that's kind of the purpose of our presentation that we hope to talk through today. So I'll let Laura move on to our next slide.
So, oh no, it's worse than I thought it was going to be. So what we call our one resourcing story, and I'll explain why we call it that in a little bit later, has really been about finding out who we are as a team and really changing and adapting to meet the demands of recruitment, but demands of the business as well. We've obviously all got photos like this that we want to forget, and actually, while we wanted to get a bit of a laugh, there is a reason we've put this up there as well. We've all had moments in our lives where we all want to forget those horrendous jeans that I've got on there and that lovely pink t-shirt and the haircut as well. But actually, it's about moving through your life and finding your own identity. And when Michelle and I thought back about the times we've been at Thornton, we've had moments like these as well. And probably they're encapsulated in our corporate photos. We're not even going to share those ones, but you'll have seen them on the website. But I suppose metaphorically as well. We've always, and even for the 2 years that I've been with the firm, we've had to change and adapt. We've had to keep things relevant. We've had to keep up with a competitive market, and we've also had to keep our stakeholders engaged. And I'm sure a lot of you in the room know just how difficult that can be sometimes. We've had to be bold and we've had to be brave, but we've had the real challenge of having a cost-effective service, which is also value-led. And that's come up with a lot of challenges as well. So what we wanted to do, actually, is explain this in 2 parts. First of all, our trainee journey, and that's kind of much longer, but then why, actually, we brought experienced hire back in-house as well.
Thank you. Just to let you know, if we keep an eye on our clock, it's just because we're conscious there's been so much talking today. We don't want to kind of keep you any longer than you need to be here. So do bear with us if we're looking at the watch. So, trainee recruitment, as Laura said, I guess this is kind of really the bedrock and foundation to what we've seen at Thornton. So we've probably been doing student recruitment probably in the regions of maybe 10, 12 years, and we've had some kind of real sort of challenges, and then we've seen some real successes which we're going to talk about today, and that's really enabled us to move into kind of the experienced hire recruitment, which Laura's going to talk about, and then also recently into senior talent, so bringing partner and director level recruitment all in-house. So what I'm going to talk about today is kind of what challenges we've been facing, how we've adapted to those challenges, and then what some of the results have been. So how has the trainee landscape changed for us? So I think as recruiters, and I'm not sure how many of you were in the panel, joined the panel kind of 15 minutes ago, what was really interesting was actually just the challenges that we're all facing in terms of securing the great talent, and actually that we're sort of fishing from the same pool. Well, we've experienced those challenges as well. So over the last probably 5 years, we've seen our increase in student recruitment jump by 75%. So we've had a kind of massive desire to bring in great students, so graduates, school leavers, summer interns and placement students. So we've had to kind of be aware of that and think, how do we still recruit those numbers? But you'll see on a very similar size and actually now smaller team and budget. We operate in a very competitive, saturated market. So we're an accountancy firm. We compete with a lot of brilliant organisations. So we recruit with kind of smaller to mid-tier accountancy firms. And then we also recruit with what is known as the Big Four, which for those that know the Big Four will know they've got quite a lot of big, healthy budgets that we don't always have. And as we've been spoken about today in this conference is the rise in apprenticeship hiring. So actually we've had the introduction of the apprenticeship levy, and there's just a general desire to kind of get some great school leaver talent into the market, and we do tend to find that we are kind of fishing from the same pool. And then, you know, those of you in the room will probably know that your candidates are lovely but can be demanding, and they want instant gratification, they want instant feedback, and they want a great experience. And what we're also seeing is that millennials in particular also want to have meaning. They want to work for an organisation that's purpose-led, that kind of goes beyond sort of the profit. So we've just kind of had to be really mindful of all of those aspects. And I guess we've had to be mindful that we're doing that within a fairly small team. So we used to have a team of kind of 9 to 10, and we've now operate with 7, and that's myself as a manager, and then 6, mixture of recruiters and a coordinator. So we've got a fairly lean team, and we've just kind of got to think about how we achieve all of that within our team and our budget. So how have we adapted? I guess it goes back to being kind of unique, and it goes back to those horrendous photos, the kind one that my mum digged out for me a few days ago, around actually what makes us unique and what is our own identity. What we knew is we haven't possibly got the big brand that the Big Four have, and we can't necessarily go out and do as much big bang activity as them. And we wouldn't necessarily want to, so that's not necessarily negative, it's just that we haven't. We also knew that actually we have got other differentiators, so actually our kind of touch points and a lot of how we treat people we really did think was going to make us unique. And we knew as an organisation that we wanted to really create an inclusive culture. So we kind of really took some time to think, well, actually, how are we going to win what we might class as a war on talent, and how are we going to get there? So I'm not going to talk through all of these points, conscious of time, so I'm just going to pick out a few, but if you've got any questions, feel free to talk to Laura and I. So I guess what's kind of symbolic, I hope, is the wheel. So quite often we get asked the question, what one thing did you do that made the biggest difference? It absolutely wasn't one thing. It was kind of a holistic approach, a suite of all different elements that made the difference. But if I have to pull out a few, I think flexible academics was a bit of a game changer for us. We were the first accountancy firm to introduce that. So what that effectively means is we moved away from requesting that all students, or all graduates and school leavers had to have a 2-1 or 300 UCAS points. So we were particularly strict. We would decline straight away, wouldn't even take time to get to know the candidate. And what we found by doing a lot of research in-house is we didn't find any direct link between performance on the job and your 2-1 and your 300 UCAS points. So that was enough for us to go out to our business and say, hang on a minute, why? Why are we saying 2-1? Why are we saying 300 UCAS points? Is that a good measure of success? So that was a bit of a game changer, and I'll go on to some of the results. And really around kind of being more purposeful. So we've threaded purpose into everything we've done, and made sure that we've kind of really differentiated around candidate experience. Something our candidates tell us, and we're not ashamed to admit it, is that when they apply to us, we can be number 5 or number 4 on their list. But actually, once they come through our process, we can go from 5 to 1 quite quickly because of the regular touch points, the coaching. So I guess to you in the room, I'd just start to think of your firm, and where are you on that ranking list, and where do you want to be, and what do you need to think about? Because for us, we weren't going to necessarily win on money, but we were going to maybe win on our experience. So I guess some of the results, so what have we seen? I've not got time to kind of go through them all today, but some of the ones I'd just like to pick out is we had a big focus on driving down the sort of quantity, but actually driving up quality. We don't need any more applications, and naturally we want to reduce that number because it is quite simply, as a recruitment commercial function, it costs us time and money. And also it's not a brilliant experience if we can't reach all of those students. So we moved to staggered opening dates. So for those in the room that are in student recruitment, will know that typically you open on the 1st of September, you bring them all through in October, and you close anywhere between December and Feb. We actually staggered. So we knew that we had so many candidates waiting around. So we'd invest time and money getting them through applications, getting them through interviews, to lose them because we just left them hanging around, which is a poor candidate experience and just really effectively a bit of a waste of money. So we moved to staggered opening dates for our programs, which has been a real success. We made some improvements to our ATSs. So we were finding that we had about 20 to 30 incomplete applications. We're having to screen them and then re-screen them, so you're effectively doubling your cost. And we've got that down from, I think it's 20 or 30 to 4%. So there's kind of some numbers. So this year, we've had a 32% increase in our positions, and we're going to fill that, but actually we've had 45% less applications. So I guess that just kind of shows that we are starting to do kind of more with less. There's some cost savings in there, which is around sort of being more efficient, so sort of increasing our quality, driving better progression rates, and then there's some other aspects which I won't talk through just because I'm really conscious of time. So what's next in the world of student recruitment? We've heard a lot in this conference around D&I. That is a continued focus for us. So how do we make sure that we have an inclusive and diverse workforce? So we'll have a real spotlight on that, even more so, to make sure that we're getting the right talent in that can flourish at Grant Thornton, and make sure that they can go on to succeed. A lot of our work that we do is around levelling the playing field. So it's not about saying you're welcome or you're not welcome. It's around trying to get everyone to that same position and they've got the same opportunities. So we have online communities, we have coaches, we have buddies for everybody, regardless of where you are in our process. So there are some of the things we want to continue to do. Enhancing our final round materials. This is around just kind of making sure that they are really fit for purpose. So we've had some feedback around making them a little bit more commercial and a bit more linked to our business. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. And then finally, this links back to kind of what we were talking about before around school leaver recruitment. Being really honest, we have seen that increase, I think I said by about 250% over the last 5 years. But actually it's not where it needs to be. We still probably have a preference for graduates because they're kind of coming in and they maybe are saying it's easier to kind of access. So how do we make sure that we are building kind of really great and meaningful relationships with schools and colleges? So that's it on student recruitment, a bit of a whistle-stop tour. If you have any questions on kind of what we've done or any of our results, we're going to try and save kind of 5 or 10 minutes for questions. Oh, sorry.
Is it just that one? Yeah. Gosh, remind me next time to go first. It's awful standing there. Does nothing for the nerves. So basically, I'm here to talk about our experienced hire recruitment team, and you'd probably be interested to know that as a big firm and a big brand, we didn't officially really have a big full 360 in-house team until 2015. And for a big firm, and unlike some of our competitors like the Big Four, that was really unheard of. So we had an RPO before, and I suppose we've all been in a room before, I definitely have, where people would say, the RPO didn't work for us, it was rubbish, it wasn't right for us, we're bringing it in-house, get loads of people in. And I hear those conversations, and I used to work for the RPO. But when we actually had a look at it, we wanted to look what had changed and what was different. And what had happened was the RPO failed because it was our responsibility. It was a very, very short-term solution. 3 years later, unsurprisingly, it wasn't working for us, and that was in terms of cost and quality. The business were disillusioned, they were disengaged, they weren't interested in recruitment anymore, we were spending money unnecessarily, and really, when we actually had a real look at what was going on, the needs of the business weren't being met, and actually the needs of our business weren't just about filling jobs. I'm allowed to say this because there aren't any of them in the room, but actually we're really lucky from an experienced hire perspective because we have a very, very engaged stakeholder group. And obviously I challenge them every day, so don't anybody ever tell them that. They want to be involved in recruitment, they want to get quality candidates through the door, they want to be involved in the interview process, and they understand things like employer brand and EVP. So for me, it was a different starting point. So being bold, we decided we'd start all over again. We were going to start from scratch and we were bringing recruitment in-house. So off we went, we mapped processes, we identified a structure, we engaged the business, we told them that we were going to change, and we developed a really great, well, what we thought, resourcing campaign. And actually, we built a team, and I'll talk later about this being what we think is the key to our success, that understood regionally what we wanted to achieve. I call it kind of right accents and right officers, and I don't know if that kind of gives it the true understanding that it needs, but this is about people being able to be immersed in their business area. We didn't want just a regional London team, people feeling left behind, but people who really couldn't be part of their business. So off we went, and we got some feedback from the business. We decided what we want to do. And we came up with this phrase, which also looks really, really cheesy when it's up there, called winning hearts and minds. And there's someone in the room who will laugh because he knows exactly where this has come from. But however cheesy that is, that was probably what we accredit now to the secret of our success 2 years later. But what does it really mean? For the new service to work, we needed the business to be on board. We needed them to want us to be there, to understand why we were there. And actually, we needed the credibility to prove that we could actually deliver what they wanted to be. So we went on a huge charm offensive. We went around the business, we got to know people, we got to know all of our stakeholders, we spent time with them, we spent time with their business areas. And actually, I can see a few people nodding around the room, and it sounds really simple, doesn't it? But so many internal resourcing functions that you see now, they come on board, they get a list of jobs, and off they go. But actually, is that really meeting what the business wants them to do? We actually employed a very, very senior recruitment team. We invested in this because what we wanted to achieve was people who had the capability to be visible, people who had the capability to understand and the background knowledge to do it, but also people that could integrate really well into their business, but have, like I said, that credibility. As recruiters, I'm one of those in that team. We have a full 360 focus, which is actually quite different to some of our key competitors as well. And that means we do everything right from the beginning in terms of taking all the job specs and working with the team in terms of forward and resource planning, but from actually finding the candidates, mapping the market, going all the way through the process and doing that bit recruiters don't really like to do, doing the contract and the admin bit. So actually as well, investing in senior people also allowed us to give our recruiters the autonomy to do what they wanted to do and do it in the right way. But there has to be a balance here, doesn't there? Because what we don't want is recruiters dotted all over the country doing what they want, and consistency was key here as well. It would be great if we had a business who they really liked us, they thought we were great, they thought we knew what we could do, and actually could we change the world a little bit and get them to understand that recruitment was just a skill and an expertise in itself. But if we didn't deliver the cost savings, we're a firm of accountancies, it was never really going to wash. So we have 2 managers who look after the whole of the team, and they make sure that processes really are in place. People focus on the right things. We have some KPIs, some systems in place we kind of have to use, but that recruiters could go about working the way they wanted to with the agility and trust that they really deserved. But the service, like I said, it had to be profitable. So here's some numbers. This is what we did. And this was in our first year. So what's interesting about these as we move through, this was a team that focused purely on leading by value and service and not necessarily on cost. In our first year alone, our cost per offer dropped from £7,000 to £4,500, with a reduced agency usage from 51% to 32%. And this is a team who actually were filling jobs any way they could. So we have some great relationships with our suppliers. That saw our number of hires increased in 1 year by 23%. And the numbers there are talking, the year before we'd recruited 780 experienced hires into the firm, and that year it was up at 960. It was quite timely because the firm needed some more people right then. We'd had a new female CEO. We were doing different things. We needed more people, but actually we could get more people through the door as well. And these here I'll talk about in a bit with internal mobility and referrals, some key projects that we worked on, and I'll explain how we actually do those. But our internal mobility was up 10%. It used to be 8% of our hires, and now is up at 18% of our hires. Still low, we should still be moving more people around our firm, but a huge improvement. And our referral scheme was previously 13% of our hires, and that's up to 21%. but that resulted in an actual saving to the firm of £2.4 million. Obviously a number we're really proud of. This year we'll release our figures probably around July time. We are looking to produce some more savings to the firm, and over the next couple of years produce another £3 million worth of savings to them. But that's great, isn't it? And to be honest, if I walked away with all those numbers, I think you thought I was probably showing off a little bit. Some things went wrong along the way, and there's some real key things that we learned that I wanted to share with you. The first one here is the importance of recruitment expertise in the decision-making process. That sounds really obvious, but when we first started introduced the team to the firm, we didn't have that, and some big decisions were made. Our ATS was probably one of them, and people had to kind of run with it, but inefficiencies happened, and work was duplicated, and actually in some ways we couldn't deliver what we wanted to the firm because recruitment expertise wasn't involved in big recruitment decisions. Now we have a real split. Every single project that we run has a recruitment expert from our team. There's 14 of us across the UK now, so we run a project alongside our portfolio. And then there's a key sponsor from the business there as well. This is great. So the referral project was one of these, and there's not many firms when we've looked out who can say that one of their recruiters has had the autonomy to rewrite the whole of the firm's referral campaign, and that was signed off at CEO level as well. But it keeps our recruiters commercial. And that leads to this bit, collaborative and project-driven recruitment environment. I suppose I'm brave enough to stand up here and say, do you know what, being a recruiter can be a really isolating job sometimes, especially when it's tough, especially when things aren't going too well, especially when there aren't candidates running through the door into all the jobs. So actually what we do here, like I said, every single recruiter has a project and delivers their portfolio at the same time, but it allows us to keep our recruiters commercially focused. It allows us to keep them as part of the business, but it also just absolutely emphasizes that we have a very agile team that can be trusted, and that really helps us retain people as well. And just finally on to what's next. One resource in here, like Michelle says, we've recently added our senior talent team to kind of complete our one resourcing structure. They look at partner director recruitment, and while they're delivering some huge cost savings to the firm, kind of focus really highly on our D&I agenda, it's also allowed us to put some more people closer to those very right at the top of the firm in terms of justifying why we're here. And then year two, we're nearly at the end of there, and direct sourcing has been a real focus for us this year. But next year, things like diversity and inclusion, quality assessments. For experienced hire, I think it's a little bit more difficult to change the way that we assess people, especially in markets where, we have time to hires of 9 to 10 months, and in that time we could just have one candidate walk through the door. What we don't want them to do is, come and, we can't do the big assessments, we can't do the round table things, so we're thinking about ways we can make that a bit more inclusive and attract different types of people. Quality, but also for us in the second year, it's about looking back at what worked for us. We don't want to lose what was great. So it's about time, again, we looked at kind of our Hearts and Minds project and also looked at a back to basics approach.
Thank you, Laura. So this is our final slide. You can sigh of relief. You're nearly free to go, as long as you don't have any questions. We have got a few people that we've G'd up for questions. But this quote really we found together, and actually we think this really illustrates what we're trying to talk about today, what we have spoken about, which is, you can read it for yourself, but it's really around the fact that as a firm, we've kind of not really stood still. We've really reacted to the market in a kind of very proactive way. As I said, we were the first accountancy firm to move to flexible academics. We were one of the first to really sort of introduce a lot of online communities and coaching right throughout our process. So our kind of plea, and I guess our call to action for you all in the room, is to think, what's your identity? What makes you unique? And what kind of do you stand for? And why would the candidates come to you? So that's our presentation. Thank you so much for joining. We realise it's right at the end of the day and you've all had lunch, so thank you so much. And if there's any questions, let us know. Thanks.